confession time. I've never, ever actually sewn with one of these. And to be fair, I have tried. Back way before I really learned to sew, I pulled a couple of these out. I would like get in, I would start to try to like read the directions. I would look and see there's only 2 sizes here, if that. And I would get so frustrated with wrangling all this and all of the layers and stuff that I would just put it away. And I would just assume that sewing wasn't for me because I couldn't figure out how to use this. It wasn't a beginner-friendly process for me, I'll say that. And I was really discouraged, and I just completely gave up on sewing for most of my life because I just assumed it wasn't something that I would be good at. But I always wanted to know how to sew. I don't think I'm the only person who has experienced this situation. And finding digital patterns really changed the way that I looked at the process of sewing. Like maybe this was something that I could achieve because independent pattern companies and PDF patterns specifically made the process feel attainable. And since I've started sewing about 5 or 6 years ago, a lot of things have changed, including my own skill set and my patience level when it comes to patterns that use this type of format. But I have to be honest that tackling a tissue paper pattern or old-fashioned, old-school kind of sewing pattern makes me nervous to this day. So that's exactly why I'm really excited to share with you what we've got today. Today, we're gonna make a versatile, beautiful, classic tank dress using one of the new printed patterns from Love Notions. And we're gonna go through all of the steps for using this printed pattern and kind of compare it to having to use a tissue paper pattern. You'll see the pros and cons and the benefits and the whole process up close and personal. So let's get started. So welcome to today's Technique Tuesday, and this is a series that we do at Love Notions where we're taking and breaking down some sewing processes to help you get the most out of your sewing time. If you want to see the rest of the Technique Tuesday posts that we've had in the past, make sure that you click on the playlist that this video is a part of. And today's episode is all about how to use and access printed patterns from Love Notions. We're going to go from start to finish with the Summer Basics dress and top from Love Notions. In case you missed the news, Love Notions is officially carrying printed versions of some of our most beloved sewing patterns. We are primarily a digital pattern company. That means that almost all of our patterns are PDF patterns. They're digital files that you can access from a variety of ways. And the most common way is to print at home and assemble each page, page by page, and tile it all out. You can also send it to a large format printer, or you can project the pattern down onto your fabric directly. But due to popular demand from many sewists, we decided to start carrying and put together several printed for you patterns, complete with a wonderful instruction booklet and full-size pages of all of the pattern pieces put together for you. And I think that Tammy, the designer here at Love Notions, has kind of reimagined what used to be a huge pain and put it together in a way that makes sense for most modern sewists. These are patterns that are clear and really satisfying to use. You know, you're not going to get stuck starting a project and then abandoning it halfway through because of frustration. So I think that's what sets these Love Notions printed patterns apart. So in today's Technique Tuesday, I am going to show you how to access and assemble and use a printed pattern from Love Notions. I'm also going to give you a little bit of a compare and contrast about what makes a printed Love Notions pattern different than the old school version. And I'm also going to give you guys some instructions on how you can bring these printed patterns to a brick and mortar store near you. We're offering the option to brick and mortar stores, quilt shops, fabric shops, places in person that you can shop that might want to start carrying these because we have now a Stockist program available. So let's dive in and start by sewing up the wonderful Summer Basics tank dress today. And I am going to be using the printed version of the pattern and show you exactly how that all looks and feels when you're sewing it up yourself. Before we dive too far in, let's talk about what is the differences between a Love Notions printed pattern and our typical tissue paper pattern that we're used to. So instead of this like flimsy, crunchy paper that's really thin and I don't know, kind of awkward to work with, you're going to get inside of a Love Notions printed pattern, you're going to get really nice, durable printed paper on large format prints. These are full-size pieces of paper that are easy to fold and refold, and they're going to stand up to any markings that you might need to make on them, and just be useful for you as you start your sewing process and prep all of your fabric pattern pieces. Let's also talk about the instructions. So with a Love Notions printed pattern, you're gonna get a really vibrant instructions booklet that's going to have everything from your sizing, finish measurements, it's going to have your fabric requirements, all in a really attractive, easy to read format, with every single step written out for you with clarity. And instead of like the newsprint fold out page that you would get with a typical printed pattern from like a big box store, that these really take for granted a lot of sewing knowledge that prevents beginners from really getting started. So a Love Notions printed pattern has a really useful, easy to access, durable booklet that comes with each printed pattern. If you're familiar with digital patterns, especially digital patterns from Love Notions, you know that this is sort of like the signature part of a Love Notions pattern. They are beginner friendly, they hold your hand through every step of the process, they bring clarity, they're easy to use, and they're satisfying at the end because you can actually get things done instead of half starting them and then kind of putting them away in timeout for a while because they're so frustrating. So that's some of the things that make a Love Notions printed pattern stand out. And these printed patterns are just like our PDF patterns with the same wonderful instructions that are very supportive, except it's all printed out, ready to go for you, ready to get sewing right away. You won't need a printer, there will be no taping, no searching for links, it's all inside here. So today I am making the printed version of the Summer Basics tank dress. I'm gonna be sewing the maxi version, and I'm only gonna be using what comes inside of the printed pattern envelope. I'm not using anything online to show that anyone, even if you're not like really computer literate or digitally literate, or used to that or prefer maybe just to be offline for your sewing time, I'm gonna show that you can make this just exactly with what's inside of the package so that you can see what you end up with. So just a little bit about the patterns that we selected for our printed version launch. We previously launched 7 patterns a few months ago. We've actually already sold out of our initial purchase of one of those patterns, but we have ordered a few more to get you going. So right now we have not only the Summer Basics tank and dress, which is gonna be great for the summer season, we also have the Vivace Dolman, which is a great pattern that can be sewn with both knits and woven fabrics. We've got the Largo Cargos, which are I love the faced waistband on this pattern, and it could go from summer into fall. And then just to kind of like cover our bases, we also did one of our most beloved and most highly requested patterns for print, which is the Oakley vest. These patterns are all available right now on our website, and you can simply click into any one of those pattern listings and you can decide whether you would like to get the digital version or you would like to get the print plus digital version. That's right, when you order from Love Notions, you're gonna get the digital version of the pattern for free. Just kind of like as a bonus to get you going, especially if you wanted to like reprint sizes or you needed a different option. Everything is contained inside of the printed pattern, but you can also access it digitally as well. Before I purchase something, I always like to see it in detail. So here is an unpacking of a Love Notions printed pattern. Let's start by looking at the instruction booklet. It is beautifully and vibrantly printed, very clear, very durable, and great to have at your sewing machine with you. It has all the size charts on the back, as well as a QR code that links directly to the pattern listing. There are also large format prints on really durable paper. I think what makes these large format prints so special is how clearly printed they are. Every piece is labeled so well so that you can see exactly what you're working with. They also have every single size. A tip that I like to use is to, on a low heat setting with no steam, I like to just iron to press out any of those wrinkles. And this is actually something you can do with a tissue paper pattern as well. Let's move on in the process. Let's just go ahead and use a Love Notions printed pattern. We're doing the Summer Basics dress. And of course, the first thing we need to do is measure ourselves to see where we fit on the size chart. The size chart and the fabric recommendations are on the back cover. I've measured myself and I'm fitting neatly into the size large for Summer Basics, and I'm going to be making that maxi tank dress. But one of the things that I want to call out for you is that there is a finished measurements chart, which is so helpful and makes the process of picking your size, especially considering your fabric use, so much easier.
The next thing that I like to do when I'm using one of these printed patterns is to highlight the size lines. Because we do have every single size contained in every version, we want to make sure that we can clearly see all of those size lines. They're printed out really beautifully, but sometimes, especially when we're getting to like that neckline curve, we just want to highlight those things. One of the things that some people do is use a tracing paper. I like to use STP to preserve the pattern pieces, and you could trace that and label it, and then you would be able to preserve your original pattern. But most of the time, I just like to highlight and cut out right away. That's just my process usually. However, one thing that I do that is a little bit different is that with these paper patterns, just because I want to preserve the rest of the lines in case I end up making a different size at some point and I don't want to waste anything, I do like to store the scraps or store the other options that are contained in the pattern. So I'm just going to fold everything up nice and neat. And this paper is really high quality, durable paper, and it's going to fit perfectly. Just fold it up back into the original envelope, the little plastic container, to save for another make. I've just about finished getting all of my lines highlighted and cutting out all my pattern pieces, but there is a need on the Summer Basics to attach oversized pattern pieces that did not fit on that large format sheet. In most cases, all of the other, I think this is the only one, all of the other patterns, all the pieces fit onto a large format print, but this is a super long maxi dress, and I will need to attach those prints. So if you look, there are stars at the top of the long piece of the skirt, and there are stars at the bottom piece of the skirt that I just cut out. And all I'm going to need to do is align those stars. For many other pattern companies, trimming is a really normal part of the pattern assembly, and Love Notions patterns are typically a no trim process, whether you are getting a large format or if you are getting a print at home version where you have to tile the pages. We don't usually have to trim, but this one we just have to do a little bit of trimming here where the bottom of the star is, and then we're just going to align the stars onto that bottom pattern piece. So look and see how easy this is. Just do a quick little trim. You'll see a very light gray line, and you will line those pieces up and they fit perfectly. Easy peasy.
So now that I have all of my pattern pieces cut out and ready to go, see how easy that was with the printed pattern? There's no taping, there's no printing, it's all set for you. So now that I've got that part done, I'm ready to grab my fabric. And the fabric that I'm using today is actually, I think it's like apropos for this make. Not only will it be perfect for the maxi length tank dress version of the Summer Basics pattern, but it also is kind of like appropriate because this fabric, I guess it would be like a spandex. Maybe, I don't think it's a rayon spandex. It's got a really nice weight to it, but it's a printed jersey that I had in my stash that I think Tammy gave me when I first started to sew. So this fabric has been in my stash just waiting for something for 6+ years. So I think it's only appropriate that I kind of go back to like my roots and try again with a printed pattern and see how it turns out. So wish me luck.
I'm going to put the pattern pieces on top of my fabric and start to cut. Notice that with this type of paper, because it's a little bit more sturdy, I would say, you can just kind of hold it in place as you cut. You definitely could pin it onto your fabric, but that's kind of hard with a really lightweight jersey like this. So we're ready to dive into the tutorial. Notice that there is a QR code to be able to see the digital listing, and you can see all the tester versions there, which is really helpful. The other thing that I like about this is just it's so clearly printed step by step. There is a seam allowance notice on page 3, and it's just going to take you through every single step. And I love that there's pro tips included, like for example, using elastic at the waist, a clear elastic at the waist. I really appreciate having a tutorial that makes me feel supported, and I love keeping this tutorial at the sewing machine with me just so I can reference those really clear line drawings and even access a QR code with extra videos. For example, this one has an extra video for attaching binding. And just like that, we have made a beautiful, wearable, easy to sew garment from our printed pattern. Zero printing, very little taping, very easy assembly, quick and very versatile and ready for your wardrobe. So if you're wondering how Love Notion's printed patterns compare to the standard old school tissue paper patterns, let's take a look at the breakdown. A Love Notion's printed pattern, the paper that is used for the pattern is thick, full-size white paper that holds up to lots and lots of reuse. And traditional old school patterns have a tissue-like paper that tears easily and is maybe a little bit harder to store. But keep in mind that tissue paper does have some benefits. A lot of people really like it for fitting, like tissue fitting. I just find it really hard to work with in store for me personally. And as far as the instructions, like we showed before, the Love Notions pattern has an instruction booklet that is full of vibrant, supportive illustrations that carry you through the whole process. It's easy to have at your sewing machine with you while you're sewing. And then traditional patterns have sometimes like a printout or a large sheet of directions that maybe leave some room for improvement when it comes to ease of use and kind of giving directions that are beginner friendly and supportive. As far as regular old school patterns, the skill level, they often assume that you have prior knowledge, a lot of prior knowledge when it comes to sewing. And for Love Notions patterns, we are a pattern company that any person can start with. Really, all of the skill levels are welcome, and there's clear guidance for your sizing help with tutorials, lots of tips throughout. And then there's even a lot of places where there will be like videos that are linked where you can get more help. The size range for Love Notions are extra small to 5X for ladies, ladies wear, and a lot of times with a tissue paper pattern, there's just like maybe one or two sizes that are on the pattern that you select. So you would have to buy a different size up or down to get all of the range. The whole range is included in the printed patterns at Love Notions. As far as supplemental support, a lot of the patterns at Love Notions have videos that take you through with demos. There's lots of sew-alongs, there's lots of online support and help, and a typical old school pattern doesn't really have a lot of video content or visual support to get you through. We already talked about the size range. Love Notions patterns are a little bit more inclusive with sizing, and if you're doing digital versions, there's layering for all of them with no trim paper, so you can get your version of the pattern in many different formats. And then with you buying a old school pattern, you typically just get one format. You either get digital or you get printed. There's not a lot of varieties. And if you are doing digital with the old school kind of pattern, you are going to have to usually trim all of the pages that you get. Love Notions patterns are very classic and wearable, but they have modern updated designs that will last for a long time. They're things that you'll actually be able to put into your closet. Notions, especially, I think that one of the things we offer is a huge community with tons of support. There is a Facebook group, we have blog posts, our Instagram, our YouTube videos. There's just so many tutorials and so much pattern support, places where you can ask questions to a real person. And keep in mind that these patterns were tested and created for real people. So we tested our patterns using real people's bodies. As far as availability, you can now find Love Notions patterns at indie brick and mortar shops, and you can find them online at lovenotions.com. And we also have now a Stockist program that can support local businesses. So if you like to shop local, Love Notions is hopefully coming to a shop near you. And if you have a shop, make sure that you recommend that they start carrying Love Notions patterns. And then as far as like another thing that I think is really encouraged with Love Notions patterns is the ability to customize, hack, change things on the base of the pattern. We are so known for having TNT, tried and true patterns that become foundations for people to make amazing hacks and changes. And that is totally encouraged. And we have lots of tutorials and users that have given us all of that inspiration. And that's not always the case with tissue paper patterns. It's sometimes hard to find any support for changing or customizing or lots of help on getting the pattern the way that you want it personally. All right, I think this is a good breakdown of how we think Tissue paper patterns and old school patterns are a little bit different than the Love Notions printed patterns that are now available online. So if you're tired of printing and taping at home, these are a great option for you. If you want to gift these to somebody, like if you want to send somebody who you think needs to start sewing a gift, this is a great place to start. And so all of these printed versions are definitely for you. All right, here's the other really exciting part about these printed patterns with Love Notions. Love Notions printed patterns are now available to be purchased wholesale for stockists, for brick and mortar shops to carry. They're also available for anybody who is planning to teach a workshop class or needs a copy of a pattern to teach to a group. So if that's you, if you're a brick and mortar shop, visit lovenotions.com/stockists. And we've got a whole bunch of information, a form to fill out so that you can start carrying these in your stores. Through the years, I have had, probably 100 different shops message me, and we didn't carry patterns that could be stocked in stores, and now we do. And we're looking to connect our current customers around the country with shops that carry garment sewing patterns that we know people love. So visit our website, lovenotions.com/stockists, and you can get more information, and you can get in contact with us so that we can connect about having Love Notions patterns in a shop near you. So if you own a shop or you work at one or you shop at one, make sure that you get us in contact so that we can send over some of our brand new printed patterns for anyone who loves to sew. So grab your new favorite printed pattern. There's lots to choose from, and get sewing. This has been a very special Technique Tuesday. Noreen will, of course, be back next month with another installment of her fantastic series where we just continue to try to bring sewing help and resources to garment sewists that want some support. There is a lot of fun coming here at Love Notions, and we can't wait to continue sewing with you throughout this year and for years to come. Bye.